Well, friends, our clocks have sprung forward, and we thought we would take the opportunity here at GP Knives to do a little spring cleaning. So that's what we're going to do. And it's going to be a bit of a long form segment. So if you are excited about anything just in particular, you can click the timestamps below and they'll take you directly to one of our segments. But we're going to jump right in. All right, so our first segment is we're going to tackle cleaning. So everybody basically, we do a lot of things with our knives, right? Everybody's got different jobs and how their days go about. So we're always cutting a lot of different stuff. We got different types of steel. But one of the most important things we have here at GP, our number one thing in our toolkit usually is a microfiber cloth. We love these things. You got to have one. You got to have several, really. Especially if you want to get into cleaning your knife. And you're always like, well, what am I going to use, Kich, on my knife? I know we're always cutting open boxes. I know everybody gets Amazon, so we're all used to tape on our blades. So I'm going to have Kich run through a couple knives here. We're going to start with like basically a higher carbon steel, would you say on this one?
High carbon steel.
And if you've got a lot of, you got a lot of tape marks on there, just general sticky stuff. I mean, where do you want to begin with that?
Usually, so I clean my knives pretty much every day. Like you said, here at GP, we open up tons of boxes. We're always unpacking something, and we're always getting tape gunk on there. A lot of guys for tape gunk use alcohol. I've found that kind of smudges the tape, makes it harder to clean off. I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong, but basically the main thing that I like to use is I'll use just good old-fashioned Windex. I don't know what it is about it. Windex is mostly water with a little bit of ammonia in it, but basically I just kind of spray it on the blade a little bit, and then I just kind of rub it in with my finger. I usually do both sides. And then I'll take a microfiber and it just kind of rubs pretty much any tape gunk right off. If I have some down on the edge, sometimes I'll lay it out and I'll kind of strop it against this. But
I like that.
It wipes it right off. It makes it pretty much totally clean. As we go through these knives, we're going to talk about patina. The reason that a lot of my carbon steel knives don't have patina is because I'm constantly cleaning them with Windex, I think. So they don't really have a chance to develop any kind of, there's no oils left on them or anything like that. Like I've had this knife since they came out. I have little to no patina on it because of that. So that's kind of something too. I found that helps. Obviously, we have other products like EDC.
I was going to say, if you're not somebody who does it every single day, but like you want to, like, hey man, mine's pretty darn gunked up. Like say this one here, this Kershaw here, this one's been through the ringer. Yeah. It's got quite a bit. I really want to get into like I want to buy something, nice, something specifically for knives. We have this KPL knife shield, which is really, really nice because it protects the knife, protects the steel, it's food safe, and it also prevents rust, which is really nice. So basically what you do is you just spray this on there. You shake it well, you spray it on there, and you wipe it off, and it's a really nice thing to have. It'll do everything Windex does, but then last you a little longer. You don't have to do it as often. Yeah,
Knife Shield also has something in it that keeps tape gunk from kind of gumming up onto your blade too. Sure. So that helps too. You don't have to do the extra step of the Windex.
Right.
EDCI works well for that too.
One of our most popular.
Another thing that they do really well is it keeps you from getting fingerprints on your blade. So if you have like a high polished or a high satin blade, you put EDCI, KPL on there and it won't get fingerprinted up.
Sure, that's cool. I like to, so those are good stainless steels. Let's jump in, I know we've done some carbon steels, but let's go back into some more carbon steels. So we have some traditional knives. We have a lot of traditional collectors here, and almost all of them come with a carbon steel. Like a 1095. And you're like, how do I keep that clean? How do I keep that from, rusting, basically? And so we have some clean versions and we have some patina versions.
Yeah, so we've got this guy, this GEC that I've had for like the last 8 years or whatever. But it is, 1095, and if you look at it, it looks basically brand new. And the only thing I've ever used on this is mineral oil. Yeah. I've never used EDCI, KPL, anything. I just kind of...
That keeps it food safe as well?
Yeah, it keeps it completely food safe. And I found that if you put mineral oil on it and you carbon steel kind of imparts a flavor on foods. But if a lot of guys use traditionals to cut apples and then it reacts with the acid and it kind of makes it taste like you cut it with a carbon knife. Sure. Mineral oil kind of puts a film between the knife blade and your apple, so you don't get that either. Cool. So that's kind of like a positive old school thing that I think my great uncle told me. Yeah. But that's kind of what I do. So I use mostly mineral oil on my traditionals. I'll even kind of drop that down on the pivot and stuff like that. Just mineral oil is real good for my Carta. If you don't want to have to do with that, you have plenty of options to put a patina on your blade, which these are yours. These are actually really turned out pretty good. Yep. But what a patina is it's basically just preformed rust. So it's the level of oxidation before you get ferrous. Sure. So it protects your blade. It's kind of like having a black oxide coating, only you've done it yourself. plenty of ways to do that. A lot of guys use like potatoes. You'll stick the knife in the potato. I've used hot sauce, apple cider vinegar, mustard. Anything acidic works great.
For sure.
Oranges, any kind of citrus fruit.
And it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. One of my favorite ways to patina a knife is to actually like cook like chicken breast, and then you cut it up and you get this really cool kind of blue patina. So a lot of different stuff you can do with that. And then you can still, put EDCI on these and it will kind of maintain that same patina instead of having more develop over time.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a really good tip. I think finally we're going to tackle an automatic knife. So basically an out the front. And we have a really good overview of how to clean and keep your automatic out the front working. We'll have a link to that below. But what's a good tip for that, Kich?
Basically, the main thing about these is if you look at them, they're just kind of a single thing. There's no way to exit out the back unless you have the Microtech tool to pull this off. But basically with these, the main thing that you have to do is just kind of make sure you get that straw deep down in there.
Oh, okay.
Kind of blow it out this way. And you want to kind of tip them to where it'll kind of fall out.
Oh, okay.
If you are using some kind of like rim oil, which I won't do so we don't get the table all dirty. But the same thing, you just kind of fill it up till it's running out and then you blow it out with air.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people are like unsure of how to do that. Like, do I just put drops of oil in there? Or?
Basically, anytime that somebody comes into the shop and they have one of these that is misfiring, malfunctioning at all, I just fill it full of oil. And then I kind of just shake it out into a trash can and I blow it out and then I work it a few times.
Eventually those parts get going again?
It always starts working.
That's amazing.
I can't think of, I've probably done, no joke, in 4 years, probably 100 of them. And I've never had one not start working again. So,
well, that's a great tip. That seems really easy for people to do. So say you do have some rust pop up on your blade, Kich. What do you do?
There's a few different things that you can do. So the main thing that you want to do is make sure that it's not in a spot that's going to be like critical to failure. So if you have like a thumb stud and there's rust around it, you might want to send that back to the manufacturer, make sure it hasn't got down into a crack or something that can cause a fracture. If it's just surface rust, anything like this rust eraser, you just kind of rub on there. It'll wipe pretty much any surface rust out. Another good product that we carry is Flitz or Metal Glow. Those work really good too. Yeah. It's not too hard to get rust off of a blade as long as it's on the surface. Once you get like deep pitting, then it becomes a problem. But the main thing is to know your finishes too. Like this is acid washed, might be a little bit more prone to rust. Anything that's bead blast is going to rust. Satin and polished, probably not going to have to worry about it as much, especially on a stainless steel.
That's a good tip. So what if I have a coated blade? Like I've got some DLC on my steel, and I want to bring that black finish back.
Usually, honestly, we've already kind of got into the Windex thing, but that's what I used to.
That's what I was going to say.
I always just use Windex. Actually, I think the next two things that we're going to talk about is still just kind of Windex. So this one is pretty gross and dirty. So I usually just do the exact same thing. Like if I was cleaning off tape gunk, I just kind of rub my finger along it. And then Windex dries pretty fast. So you'll have kind of that like wet look for a second. And then once it dries, it looks just like regular old plain black clean DLC.
Wow.
It's already dry.
That's great.
Yep.
What a multi-purpose tool you have there in Windex.
I know, Windex is great. Another thing that I like to use it for is anything that's anodized. Like this is our old buddy Shane, the cameraman's knife.
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time he did this to it was, but this is like usually bright purple, and it's not. So if I take some Windex and I spray it on my microfiber, and then I rub that onto the scales, it kind of brings them back to life.
Oh, nice.
You see how much brighter they are now?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It works great on pocket clips, too. I've noticed that like anytime you have like a blue anodized pocket clip, the oil from your hands from pulling it in and out really kind of kills the anodization pretty quick. But it kind of brings them all back.
Wow, that looks great. Even pocket clip.
I mean, you can look at the difference in the sides. Like this guy's all like muted and dull, and then this one's real bright purple again. So Windex is great kind of multi-purpose tool and cleaner, which it says on the bottle. So.
So as important as it is to keep your blade clean, so is your handle and your pivot. So we've got a lot of things to unpack from that. So basically we're going to move into some maintenance stuff there and overall functioning of your knife, right? So when we talk about handles, I was going to point over there to your microfiber. Another good use for it is cleaning out the handle. Like everybody gets pocket lint and everything, they like, gunks up your handle, gunks up your pivot. It's awesome to be able to just take your microfiber, put it in there and pull that stuff out. You can also blow it out with the air that we had over there earlier. That's a really good trick for doing that, keeping that stuff out. But what you can't get to is your pivot. So when it comes to that, we're definitely going to recommend some good lubrications for your pivot. But it also depends on what is at your pivot, right? Exactly.
So the pivot on this guy is going to be ball bearings. So you're not really going to want to get any kind of lubricant in there that's not going to be like a super lightweight oil. Oil's great. It does lubricate things, makes them move slicker, faster. What it also does is it draws dust and dirt, especially like in your pocket. So we carry our knives in like a pretty bad environment. You know, it's not very conducive to keeping your pivot clean.
Sure.
Gunk gets trapped in there, dust gets trapped in there. Any kind of oil is going to draw that into your knife.
Sure.
So if you have ball bearings and you want it to stay like flippy and smooth, that's probably not going to be the best bet. I would just use, like what I do use is just compressed air. Just blow it out. I don't run any oil. There's a bunch of different bearing companies out there that make kind of like self-lubricating ceramic stuff like that. You can use that. That works fine. Traditional pivots, like if I was going to use something like this, the key point and kind of what I want to stress at this point is that the pivot is kind of like the heart of the knife. Usually if there's anything going wrong with your knife, if you notice that it's not locking up properly, if it's loose, if it's too tight.
Feels gritty. We hear that all the time.
Yeah, if it feels like it's got gunk in it, it's probably due to poor adjustment in your pivot or it's just dirty. So the first thing to do is, take some kind of, Torx bit tool. You find the right tool for your knife. You adjust your pivot. You make sure that it's tight and locking up properly. Like this is a backlock, so if I had this, way too loose, this backlock's not going to seat right. It's going to feel weird. Yeah. Same thing would happen if there was some dirt back here or gunk. It's just not going to seat right. It could be potentially dangerous if you don't ever clean it, and it's going to make your knife feel kind of funky. This guy actually doesn't have any washers, so it's really easy to just drop oil. You get something like this nano oil, it's got a real nice needle on it. Kind of just drop it in here. You make sure that I like to run it from kind of like front to back so that I get that covered. Okay. And then also if it's a lock that like it runs up against this back lock, I'll put a little drop there too so it kind of coats that. That'll help with corrosion on a knife like this as well. This isn't really somewhere that I'm going to try and get Windex or KPL or EDCI.
Sure.
So the oil kind of maintains this as well, keeps it from rusting on
That's nice. Yeah.
Tool steel knife. If you're using something that's like what everyone calls a bar lock now, but used to be just an axis lock, kind of the same thing. It kind of runs on the tang of that blade. So the same thing, whenever I go to oil it, I want to make sure I get a nice stripe of oil going down the tang of that. And then obviously use gravity to your advantage and kind of rub it on both sides of the blade tang. It'll kind of seep down in there, work it a little bit.
Yeah.
It'll get it smooth and flippy in no time.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too with a lot of my blades is once you get it in there, you want to kind of work that oil on that pivot, So what if you have something that's like pretty dirty in there? You've got some bronze washers, just standard stuff in there. Like you said, you probably blow it out first is what you probably
I would blow it out, or kind of like the same way that you do in OTF. I would just take like some rim oil, anything with a straw. WD-40 would work. You just kind of stick that straw in there, spray it out as much as you can,
first,
and then blow it out. And then usually, honestly, that's kind of enough lubricant to last for a pretty good while.
I was just going to ask that. So depending on like if I use a KPL or if I'm using nano oil, how often do you think I need to put that in there? How often do I need to lubricate?
No, not too often. I mean, I kind of lubricate generally, like we'll get into it whenever I talk about sharpening, but I sharpen usually, like I'll strop every day and I'll kind of sharpen every like 2 or 3 months. And that's kind of whenever I go and lubricate everything back up to. And then a lot of us, we all have a lot of knives. So you're kind of rotating through them. So you might have one that sits for a pretty good while before you get back to it. And you might want to put a couple drops of oil in there. Right. Basically, if I pick something up out of the knife drawer and it feels a little gritty, a couple of drops of nano oil and I'm good to go.
Awesome. That's a good tip. And you know what else is really, you really got to think about your pocket clips really on just about everything because
definitely,
you over time you carry them and what you don't realize is a lot of them are coming free. Maybe they don't have thread locker on them or something. And it doesn't take much. You get it caught on a seat belt or something and then all of a sudden, boop, there goes your pocket clip.
Yep. I mean, you have 3 screws that are constantly under stress, basically. You're always pulling your knife in and out of your pocket. So they will loosen up over time. So kind of my general rule is anytime I pick up a knife to carry it, I kind of try and wiggle the pocket clip. If there's any wiggle, it gets tightened up.
Sure.
Same thing goes with like if you use any kind of clip on your fixed blade sheets, like this one's a mower clip.
Right? Yeah.
I will 100% before this goes in my pocket or on my pack, these get checked to make sure that they're tight. That way I'm not losing this knife in the middle of the woods somewhere.
Yeah, really good tip. So that's why we did want to bring out the Torx drivers. Just, if you take them apart for cleaning and lubricating and whatever, but really make sure you tighten them back up really good. And you can use like a medium strength thread locker, I think, on a lot of parts, especially your clips if you don't want to worry about that too much.
Thread locker glue works great for pivots and clips. It holds it tight, but you can still break it with a driver. You don't have to like boil it or anything like you would with thread locker reds.
Yeah. You don't want a permanent solution all the time, but just something to, keep your mind at ease, I think.
Yep.
And speaking of maintenance, Kich, we're going to jump right into sharpening, which is a very tense subject, I think, out there amongst all of our EDC fans out there. So there's a lot of systems and a lot of different price points out there. As long as I've worked here, the Spyderco SharpMaker has been one of our best sellers. Yep. And there's a reason for that. It's not only just its price point, but just the fact of how simple it is to use. It's basically you just have these triangles here, and you just pull it down, you pull it through, and you do the same number on each side. so that you get a nice even edge. You can start off, these are diamonds, which is, I use that for my tool steels. Anything that I've let go a little bit, where I'm like, man, I really want to get that sharp edge back. The diamonds are great for that, but it comes with the mediums, which is just a nice, smooth, maintenance edge on that. And then you've got different fines and ultra fines, which are the most popular here for giving up a finishing touch there. But I mean, it's just so simple. It's so compact. It doesn't take up any room in your house. It's just a great device. That's why we always recommend the Spyderco Sharp Makers.
I think that you can really get too into it, in too deep, too fast. You can go buy, $1,000 sharpening system and you don't have any idea what's going on.
Right.
So I would just be careful. I think that the Spyderco Sharp Maker is an excellent option. It's the one that I think everybody who works here pretty much started on.
Yeah.
And then some of us has moved on. We've moved on to, higher end systems. Some of us have stayed there. I have a higher end system. I use the Spyderco Sharp Maker more than I've ever used it.
Yeah,
Basically,
for sure.
For anything that's not like completely reprofiling a knife, Sharp Maker is going to crush it.
Absolutely. So do you use this like hand in hand with a strop? Do you recommend a strop for just kind of like a daily maintenance tool, or is it something you use when you sharpen?
I kind of do it back and forth. Basically, whenever it comes down to like a strop. So if I use my knife a lot during the day, the first thing I do whenever I get home, I take all the stuff out of my pockets, and then I pet my cat, and then I strop my knife.
Of course.
So basically, stropping is just what it's doing is it's taking any like micro burrs or microchips or rolls out of your edge. So as I go to do this, it's kind of straightening everything back out, and it's also polishing it. So it's sharpening it completely. There's 100 different ways to kind of strop a knife, and I don't have my glasses on, so this probably looks bad from here. But you can kind of start here, run to the tip. You can start with the tip, run to the tail. You put different pastes on here. So this is a fine paste, so that polishes it. And then this is the coarse side, and then to finish it up and get a real bright, shiny edge, there's a fine side to a strop too. So pretty much every strop has two sides. Most of the time I've found that if I use my knife a lot during the day and it's not super dull yet, like I can still kind of, cut paper and stuff without tearing it, I can usually bring it back to life depending on the steel. Like if we're not talking like, like high-end like K390 tool steel, something, relatively soft, this fine side brings me back to life in about 20 swipes.
Oh, wow.
So I'll kind of do 20 swipes, and then I'm usually shaving sharp again by the end of that. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with us through this monster of a video. If you did, maybe you skipped to the end. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Check the comments down below. Let us know any tips and tricks that you guys have. See you guys in the next video.
Take care.